Civil rights attorney, the warrior angel, Caree Harper, is our co-host today, and we're talking judges. People, get your notebooks out. We finna talk about some stuff you might need to write down.
Yes, Dominique, and what we were talking about, too, is bringing on Tiffany Blacknell. You want me to just introduce her? This is a very powerful and dynamic black female in Los Angeles County that, if you don't know about her, you should. She has been a public defender for 17 years with the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office. She graduated from USC Law School, and she's handled a variety of misdemeanor, juvenile, and complex felony cases, including special circumstance murder. And in 2018, she was honored for her service with an Outstanding Advocacy Award. And Tiffany, I think, is on the line with us, Dominique.
Indeed, she is. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for waking up with me and attorney Caree Harper. And I'm going to take a back seat here because I've got two super expert attorneys talking about judges, an area about which I know almost nothing. Take it away, attorney Caree Harper.
And Dominique, what I didn't say is Tiffany is a mom to 3 kids, but one of these kids she posts about, little Lexi, has so many Lexisms. I just want to know what Lexism would Lexi have about what's going on in politics today in LA County, Tiffany.
Fascinatingly, Lex is very astute in terms of her notion of justice. So she's actually been very interested in capital punishment. Although she's 8, she knows that there is a death penalty, and she can't seem to understand why we kill people to prove that killing people is wrong. She's a strong believer in retribution, in rehabilitation, and in redemption. And she says mistakes are magic, and people make mistakes, and they should have the opportunity to be redeemed. So that's our most recent political comment from Lex.
You know, even though Lex is 8, that doesn't surprise, and I've never met her, doesn't surprise me because she's around you all the time, and, you know, she knows what you do.
Okay.
So that doesn't surprise me, and she's right. So that certainly bears looking at the district attorney's race, since Jackie Lacey puts more people on death row than any other DA in the country. Not our topic, but I couldn't resist throwing it in there.
Well, Dominique, I think that, and that is,
she has a political
without the DAs, cases don't get brought to the judges. So since you brought up DAs, I just want to know, being on the front line, Tiffany, and dealing with that in criminal court all the time, what is your opinion about the DA's race?
You know, for me, it's a clear choice to vote for George Gascon if you are someone who wants to end mass incarceration and keep our city, our county safer because of his very modern way of looking at criminal justice. I mean, he is someone who has occupied a role as a police officer and as a DA in San Francisco, and has kind of ushered in an era of reform. He's very thoughtful about, you know, ending mass incarceration, reducing jail populations, for example. LA County has the largest jail system on earth, while San Francisco was operating below capacity when he left. He is thoughtful about children and how they are treated in the criminal system. He doesn't believe children need to go to the adult court like Jackie Lacey does. Jackie Lacey has sent children as young as 14 to the adult system, and she continues to do so. He's thoughtful about how racist the gang enhancers are, and he will not use the gang enhancers if he is DA, and that has been a particularly difficult thing to combat in the criminal system. As an 18-year veteran of the system, I've seen how it destroys black and brown teenagers. So his thoughts on both the gang allegation being racist, on the juvenile movement to the adult system, and on people being murdered by the state, essentially, are very progressive. And I think he has a way of actually prosecuting crime while still being mindful of the reasons people go into the system. You know, mental health treatment and drug treatment and rehabilitation are at his focus, not punishment. So I think that if LA wants to both be more humane, be more thoughtful about on how mentally ill population and be more compassionate for children who are in the system. I think the choice is clear. It's not Jackie Lacey. It's definitely George Gascon.
And, Dominique, my feeling on the issue, but I kind of feel obligated to balance it off a little bit that no DA is going to prosecute and do everything any of us want. So there are going to be unfavorable decisions that even the best choice is going to make. So, but when you have something on video and you just don't, and you say who you're going to believe, me or your lying eyes, then that does raise a question. But that's all I'll say on the DA race there. And then, talk about the judges. What do you say we talk a little bit about the judges now?
Let's do it.
So first up in seat 72, running for Superior Court Judge, is Mayana Dillinger, Dellinger, and she is a law professor who's running against Steve Morgan, who is a Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney. My opinion in this race, I think it's clear, and that would be for Mayana Dillinger because she brings a wide variety of things and she touches a lot of bases, not just one base. And Mr. Morgan does have his attributes. He's been he's done some military court things, but Mayana is just really into climate change. You rarely hear a judge talk about their opinion on climate change, but certain issues and environmental issues do come before the court. She's done work on clean water, written papers on the Flint, Michigan water situation. She's a female, and she wasn't born here in the U.S., so she's had certain struggles. She had a very modest upbringing, if not a very poor and impoverished upbringing. And not having a silver spoon in your mouth, that gives you a certain type of empathy to other people, in my personal opinion. What do you think, Tiffany?
She's not afraid to say there's bias in the system. She's not afraid to say that we need racial justice. She's someone who I think is not tainted by being in the DA's office or being a prosecutor. She's the ability to think outside the box, which is important in terms of creating new ways to approach the criminal system. And so I appreciate her background being not typical. There are too many people who are from the DA's office who are on the bench who just naturally go there, and because they put the designation prosecutor next to their name, they get elected. I like that she comes from a different background, a different approach, and I think that she would add something to the conversation. That she wouldn't, her knee-jerk reaction wouldn't be prison. Her knee-jerk reaction wouldn't be incarcerate. She would be more thoughtful about it because I think she comes from a different background. And we need more of that on the bench. I would be excited to see someone who was brave enough to talk about racial justice and brave enough to admit there's bias and thoughtful enough to think about long-term consequences that the jail system has on Black and brown communities and families and individuals. So I think that although the judge elections are difficult because we don't know enough about these candidates, we're forced to make a choice from what we have, unfortunately. But from what I can see, I would be more swayed towards her thought process and her identity and her life experience because of the need for the diversity.
I agree. And if you visit her website, she's a Fulbright scholar, and she graduated number 1 in her law school class, number 1, and she clerked for federal district court judges. She acted as a temporary judge, so she's walked and written the materials that a judge would do. So she's proven herself in that manner. Some would say, hey, Steve Morgan has all this trial experience, and trial experience is wonderful. That is. And you get that at the PD's office and the DA's office. And there are things that can be taught there. But there are other things that can't be taught that judges should bring to the bench already, and that's empathy. You can't teach that in a trial, can't teach that in a book. And I think Mariana Dillinger for seat 72 would be the clear choice there. So,
well, I mean, it sounds clear to me. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but these are the insights that are really helpful, because I think one of the things we learned when you produced the series, Caree Harper, Meet the Judges, where we, met the judges in the primaries on both sides of every race just about, is that, there are ways to tell. Even though these races are supposed to be nonpartisan, if you read between the lines, you can kind of tell who leans Democratic and who leans Republican, and things like this. We've got a law professor versus someone out of the DA's office, a woman from a low-income background who's more able to understand the issues many of the low-income people she may face on the bench are going through. These are things to me that are something I wouldn't know just looking at the ballot and trying to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But for me, they're determinative. So I definitely would go with what you guys have both just taught us. I would definitely go with Mariana Dillinger.
Right. And just to put a couple of cherries on top of that, she's been endorsed by Congresswoman Maxine Waters and the Los Angeles Sentinel. So
all right.
the next
and you know what? And I say all right like that, not to be funny, but because I always like to compare endorsements, right? So I look at the League of Women Voters. I look at the LA County Democratic Party. I look at Maxine Waters. I look at the Progressive Voters Guide, look at the LA Times and the Sentinel, and then I'll compare. But I say it like that because, of course, the Sentinel has endorsed Jackie Lacey, which is interesting because even Mayor Garcetti has switched from Lacey to Gascon, but the Sentinel is her ride or die paper. So I think that's why I think it's always good to look at
endorsement too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of people initially endorsed her and switched. A lot of people have made the switch. But I don't think the Sentinel will, the ride or die endorsement. So that's why I never go by just one slate off of one paper or one recommendation.
And before
but interestingly, every black leader in LA has I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Tiffany. I don't think Attorney Harper could hear you interjecting.
I can't really
go
hear
ahead.
Tiffany very well at all.
I'm sorry. I was saying, interestingly, the Sentinel doesn't endorse George, but Maxine Waters has, and Supervisor Thomas has, Ridley Thomas has, and Kamala Harris has, and Holly Mitchell has, right? So he has so much support from the black community, and I hope that the black community isn't fooled into thinking that because Jackie is a black woman that she is somehow supportive of black women, because she simply is not. All skin folk and kinfolk, right? I think she does so much harm to the black community in her 8-year tenure that it's unfortunate if folk like the Sentinel support her.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I don't want to go off into a tangent. We can talk about it tomorrow for Radio Free Friday, and I will be in, don't worry. Some people are mad at Ice Cube right now because he sat down with the Trump administration and supposedly helped with their platinum plan. And, I think Ice Cube is playing a smart game. I think he's saying, my vote is up for grabs in order to push Democrats into doing more and in order to trick Republicans into doing more. I know he's a smart man. I know he doesn't think the man who promised to be faithful to Melania Trump, the man who promised all those folks at Trump University that he was going to teach them how to be rich while stealing their life savings, the man who has lied 20,000 times since being in office, is really going to give you what he says he's going to give you in that platinum plan. I know Cube ain't that dumb. So, again, we have to read between the lines, and no matter what Ben Carson might say, no matter what Daniel Cameron might say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Right. Didn't Trump mistake him for Frederick Douglass or something?
And say he's doing a great job.
He did that, right?
I know he said Frederick Douglass is doing a great job. And that, of course, would have been true if he was still living. Oh, you know what? We've got Big Papa on the phone with a question for you guys, or a comment. Hi, Big Papa. You're on with attorney Caree Harper and Tiffany Blacknell.
Good morning. Good morning. First of all, I was talking about Jackie Lacey. I really feel she needs to step down, and we need to stop supporting this lady. Being in prison, I experienced prison, falsely accused. And if so many people in prison are mistreated, I was just looking at the news the other night. They showed a jail. I wonder where was that jail at, because I went through several. I've never seen a jail look the way they had on TV. In prison, it's overcrowded. I was in Soledad. We was maxed out at 120 in the room. We had 200. They had after they went through inspection for fire code, they blocked off all the exits with beds and lockers. We had rides in there. We could not get through to get to people. But Jackie Lacey supports the police. They have a thing they call the chill room. You remember how the phone booth used to be? It's cages locked on in Soledad outside like phone booths. They make you strip down to your drawers and get in there. They have water at the top that they cut on in the morning and put you in there. Cold water drops on you. You out there shaking. We're treated like slaves in prison, and we support the prison. It's sad to say they have windows in there that are broke out.
All right, Big Papa, you're going to have to call me back because I love to hear your perspective here. And, you know, today we're focused on judges, and I think your point is good because these are the reasons why we need to be mindful of who the judges are and who the district attorneys are, right? Big Papa?
But Jackie Lacey, we really not should support her because being black, we are mistreated through the system. And to have somebody on the pole that don't support us, support the police of how they do us, we've been beaten and misused by police from day one.
Right,
Coming
and of course,
I've been beat.
I'm sorry you've been through all of that, and I'm glad you're paying attention. You're voting, of course.
Of course, I just went to get back because I just got out of prison, so my rights was taken away, falsely accused.
Okay, so everybody has to vote yes on 17. Now, if you're, I guess, you know, if you're on probation, you can vote. If you're on parole, you can't, I believe, because that means you're still what they say de facto incarcerated. But that's why we're voting yes on 18 to make it to where the minute you get out, you can vote. And also, I would add to Big Papa's point, even though we're not talking about that today, yes on Measure J, because that's about, you know, reallocating some of the resources within that incarceration and law enforcement system to things that can help rehabilitate people and, you know, changing our priorities to align with our protests a little bit more. Thank you so much, Big Papa. Caree Harper, Tiffany Blacknell, you guys want to comment on anything he said before we move on and judges?
All I'll say is that the folk who've been to the system are the people that we need to listen to because they've experienced it firsthand. So much of what people do, they vote, they have comments, they have opinions on the criminal system without actually having lived experience. And the people who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And so I really respect folks who speak out about their own experiences in the system because from those stories you learn how the real impact of the law and judges and prosecutors on human beings and their families and their communities. And so his description of what he endured should be something that we, you know, look at and listen to so we can prevent it from happening to someone else.
Okay, we got to take a break right here. I also want to say, because I don't want to forget, today's the last day to be counted in the 2020 census. Speaking of judges, Supreme Court allowed the president to stop the census, and so you black and brown people would not be counted. And now they're saying today is suddenly the last day. So please go online and fill out the census, 2020census.gov, or just type in my census. Yeah, I know. Yesterday we had till the 31st. Now we have till today. They're stealing your ballot boxes. You see where they're going with this. When we continue, we will continue our conversation with Tiffany Blacknell and co-host attorney Caree Harper, and we're going to get it together about these judges. It's the front page, broadcasting live from the 1-800-THE-LAW 2 studio, Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.